Ladies and gentlemen, in the tall glass towers of the corporate world, where time is money and every second counts, there walked a man who was invisible to almost everyone. Daniel Reed, a single father, a night cleaner in one of the largest tech companies in the city. He didn't wear a suit. He didn't have a title. But he had something greater, a promise to his little daughter, Emily, that he would make their lives better someday. Daniel's nights were long. Every evening after tucking Emily into bed at his sister's apartment, he would walk miles to the office, mop in one hand, a bucket in the other, and tired eyes that hid years of quiet struggle. People saw him, but they never really saw him. He cleaned offices after meetings where decisions worth millions were made. He wiped coffee stains off polished conference tables, and sometimes, he stared through glass walls at the presentations he wasn't allowed to attend, dreaming of a day when he'd sit in those rooms for real. Because Daniel wasn't always a cleaner. He had once been a software engineer, creative, bright, and passionate, until tragedy struck. When Emily's mother passed away after a long illness, Daniel had to sell everything to pay medical bills. Jobs disappeared, savings vanished, and soon, the man who once built systems that powered companies was scrubbing their floors instead. Yet every night, after cleaning the CEO's office, he would sit in a corner with his old, cracked laptop, the one he'd saved from the ruins of his past, and code quietly. He was building something he believed could change lives, an app that could help single parents manage time, work, and childcare with community support. It was a stormy night. Most of the employees had left early, except for Victoria Hale, the company's CEO, young, brilliant, feared by many. She had built her empire through pure determination, but in the process, had grown cold, skeptical, and impatient with anything that wasted her time. She was still in her office, typing furiously, when Daniel entered to clean. He kept his eyes low, his steps quiet. He had learned long ago that silence was his armor. "Be quick," she said without looking up. "Yes, ma'am," Daniel replied softly. He moved efficiently, dusting, wiping, careful with every surface, until his hand brushed against her desk and the bucket slipped slightly. In a second, it happened. Water spilled, directly onto the CEO's laptop. The silence that followed was deafening. Victoria's head snapped up. "What have you done? Do you have any idea what's in there?" Daniel froze. He grabbed tissues, trying to dry it, stammering apologies. "I'm so sorry, ma'am. It was an accident. Please, let me." "Stop," she shouted, standing. "You just destroyed weeks of confidential work." Her voice cut through him like a knife. Security rushed in. The humiliation was unbearable. He stood there, soaked, trembling, helpless. "Please, I'll pay for it." "You pay for a $10,000 laptop?" She scoffed. "Get out. You're done here." He felt his chest tighten. "Please, ma'am, I have a daughter. I can't lose this job." But she had already turned away, calling IT to recover data. Defeated, Daniel packed his things and left, walking home through the rain with tears that blended into the storm. The next morning, IT tried to retrieve the CEO's files. Surprisingly, when they opened the drive, they found two separate folders. One belonged to Victoria, company documents. But there was another, labeled simply, Emily. Confused, they opened it, and discovered hundreds of lines of code, handwritten notes, sketches of app designs, and video recordings. Victoria leaned closer. It wasn't company data, it was Daniel's personal project. The videos showed a man recording updates late at night. "Emily's asleep now. I've added the calendar sync feature. If I can finish this by next month, maybe I can pitch it to someone. Maybe she'll have a better future." Then came another clip, Daniel holding his daughter's hand at a hospital checkup. She had a weak heart condition. He said softly, "Don't worry, sweetie. Daddy's going to fix everything." Victoria sat back, speechless. The same man she fired, the one who scrubbed her floors, was building technology that could help people like him, single parents struggling against the system. Her hands trembled as she replayed his words. In that moment, something shifted inside her. She remembered her own childhood, raised by a single mother who cleaned houses while she studied. The memory hit her like a wave of guilt and realization. This wasn't just a cleaner. This was a man trying to change the world for his child, just as her mother once did for her. It took hours to find Daniel. He didn't answer calls. Finally, Victoria drove to the modest neighborhood his employee file listed. She found him sitting on a worn-out porch, comforting his daughter as she coughed lightly. When she stepped out of her car, he stood up, confused. "Ms. Hale, I'm sorry again for the laptop." She shook her head. "You don't need to apologize, Daniel. I came to apologize to you." He blinked. "What?" "I looked at your files, what you built. The app, it's brilliant." He frowned, unsure if it was mockery. "You saw that?" "Yes," she said gently. "And I also saw your story. The sacrifices you've made. Daniel, you shouldn't be cleaning floors, you should be leading a team." He couldn't speak. His throat tightened. She smiled faintly. "You said in one of your notes you wanted to pitch it. Let's make that happen. I want to invest in your idea." Tears welled in his eyes. "You mean, you'd help me build it?" "I don't just want to help," she said. "I want your app to become part of our company. You'll lead the project." In that moment, for the first time in years, Daniel felt seen. He looked at his daughter, her eyes wide, her small hand clutching his. "Daddy, you did it," she whispered. Months later, the app, now called ParentLink, launched. It connected single parents, offering childcare exchanges, emotional support, and local resources. It became one of the company's most successful social initiatives. At the press conference, Victoria introduced Daniel not as a former cleaner, but as the heart behind innovation. He stepped to the microphone, voice steady but filled with emotion. "I used to think my past made me small," he said. "But it turns out, the hardest parts of life are what teach us the most: compassion, resilience, and the courage to start over. Never underestimate someone because of their uniform or title. You don't know what battles they've already won." The crowd stood in applause. Victoria smiled proudly, and little Emily watched from the front row, her father, once invisible, now shining brighter than ever.